You're listening to The Back 40, the podcast for Ontario farmers, covering topics and issues that matter most to Ontario agriculture. Brought to you by Trillium Mutual Insurance, bringing the ag community together one podcast at a time. I'm the host of The Back 40, Mike Brine, agribusiness specialist at Trillium Mutual Insurance. Ever since I can remember in the farming community, farm safety has been an issue that's been top of mind, and we've talked a lot about it over the years. Yet, even though we talk a lot about it and we have many initiatives that are put forward, I think all of us within the farming community can reach back into our memory and find times when farmers have made a mistake and there's been an accident. Farm safety is something that we always talk about at that point, but many life-changing, life-altering, and sometimes life-taking incidents that have taken place over the years. We all try to educate our farmers and we all try to keep that top of mind. But in the United Kingdom, there's a foundation there that is doing things just a little differently than what we would normally expect in this country. The Farm Safety Foundation was established in 2014 by the National Farmers Union Mutual, or the NFU Mutual, as an initiative to try and improve farm safety. We're talking today with Stephanie Berkeley, who's the manager of the Farm Safety Foundation. Stephanie has been with the program since the start, and she has been responsible for developing and growing the foundation. Stephanie, welcome to the Back 40.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me.
So, Stephanie, many people are not going to know who you are. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us a little bit of background about who Stephanie Berkeley is.
I am from Ireland. I grew up in the very northern part of the island of Ireland, Donegal, arguably the most beautiful part of the world, apart from Canada, of course. Also, the scene of the filming of the latest Star Wars movies, for any of you that want to set the scene. In the community where I grew up, most of my friends were either farmers or fishermen. We're on the coast of the Atlantic, which is just wild and beautiful, but also treacherous. And actually, the two brothers of one of my good friends went to work one day and didn't come home. That's something that affected both her family and our community. And it's something that I personally decided that I would like to do something about, hence my involvement in the Farm Safety Foundation. I moved over to England about 6 years ago with the family. At that time, they were setting up this charity, and I thought, that's the job for me. I want to do that. I want to make a difference. If I can save a life or a limb by engaging with people and getting them to see the issues that they're facing every day, then that's what I should do.
It sounds like that it's a great fit there, that this is something that's a passion of yours. The foundation was established in 2014 and you were brought on from the beginning. Can you give us a little bit of a background as to why NFU Mutual decided that this was an issue that they needed to address?
The thing about this organisation in the UK is that they support and insure 75% of all farmers right across the UK. They had been doing a little campaign called Farm Safety Week once a year for a couple of years before that and had got quite good engagement. But actually, when they went back to the board very strongly believed that this is something they needed to do, not just 1 week in the year, but actually each and every day. And the way they thought they could do this properly, independently, and for the good of the actual farming community itself was to set up an independent registered charity so they could hand that over to them and that it wouldn't be guided by commercial aspects. It wouldn't be viewed as something that would have a suspicion attached to it. That whatever the foundation could do would be done extremely independently and for the greater good of the farming industry. So they basically set up the Farm Safety Foundation, registered as a charity, then created a fantastic brand in a pair of yellow wellies. And they've created a strapline, who would fill your boots. I feel so lucky, actually, that I inherited such a strong brand. The yellow, obviously, is a warning. So it's quite a friendly thing. Farmers wear wellies all the time. So a warning about who would actually fill your boots if there was to be an accident happen to you. And it's really about getting farmers to think about themselves and the fact that they're not invincible, that it can happen to them. And there are life-changing, life-ending consequences of having a serious farm accident.
From the time I could walk, my father was talking about farm safety and what needed to happen in order to make sure that we came back safe at the end of the day. And that never changed from the time that I was just able to walk until he retired out of the farm. It was always the same thing that was top of mind. And I think it is on a lot of farms. But I'm not sure that we're always as effective as we would like to be. We don't necessarily keep that at our top of mind. What do you think the reason is that farmers in particular, we have so much difficulty with this issue and trying to keep ourselves safe?
Well, the thing about farming, and in the UK anyway, it accounts for 1% of the overall working population. It employs 476,000 people, 1% of the working population. But in terms of actual workplace fatal injuries, it accounts for 20% of all deaths in the workplace in the UK. It's 18 times more dangerous than the industry average. Now, the thing about farmers is they will look after their livestock, they'll look after their land, they'll look after their machinery. They'll put themselves somewhere down that end of that list. And that's the problem. I think the farmer doesn't realise that they are the farm's biggest asset. And I'm delighted to hear that your father was embedding really good behaviours and attitudes, because unfortunately in the UK, it's not the same. People weren't really talking about farm safety. It was a topic that people shied away from. It's because there's going to be more regulation. That gets in the way. That costs too much. It takes too much time. But actually, if you delve into the accidents that people have had over the last 60 years, they haven't changed. It's the same things that are causing life-ending and life-changing accidents. The figures haven't necessarily improved. The numbers of older farmers having those accidents has changed because it's an aging workforce. So that's why when the foundation was set up, we were set up to preserve and protect the next generation of farmers. And that's it, because nobody had targeted those next generation farmers that could probably bring the good behaviours into the industry. So it's about a cultural change. It's about an attitudinal change. And for us, it's something that it's not an overnight success. It's something that we will take time to actually make that change, but we're happy to play the long game.
It's very difficult to change people when they get up into their 50s and 60s. We're pretty much set with how we're going to do things. If you're going to make inroads in this, that has to be with people that are younger, that are still forming their attitudes, doesn't it?
Absolutely right. I mean, you've got the difference between somebody saying that I've done this way every year for the last 40 years and I've been lucky and I've got away with it. And then you get the guys that are at college that are making their journey into agriculture and say, do you want to do this for the next 40 years? Well, let's do it properly. Let's look at this as professional modern farming. You need to address it like a business. You need to look at yourself and the people that you're working with as your employees, the people you've got a responsibility for, and also do it properly. And a lot of the issues that we have in the industry are basically attitudinal changes. And we've seen the change in attitudes of the next generation, thinking twice about taking risks, thinking about the consequences of having that accident. We do that actually through our research, which I'm sure we'll chat about later. But those kind of things are things that we are seeing now, 8 years down the line, that the next generation have a better attitude to staying safe on the farm. Actually a better attitude to things like risk assessments, which older farmer will just raise his eyebrows and go, oh, waste of paper, but actually understanding the practicalities of it and making it easier for them to do their job and do it safely and come home safe at the end of the day.
I remember standing in the yard of my neighbor after he'd been killed in a farming accident and talking to someone else. And the conversation went something to the effect, we've all done something like that. And 99 times out of 100, we get away with it. And that attitude there that we've always gotten away with it, we've always done it that way, and it's been fine. That plays into this. And the only way that you're going to change this, I think, is through the strands that you've talked about in your foundation here, where you talk about engagement, education, communication, and research. I want to talk just a little bit about that engagement part to start with. It's difficult to, as you say, get people engaged because it's not about regulation. It's about a mindset on the farm.
For us, engagement is basically making friends. It's about using the fact that we're actually a small charity, but we can't do it on our own. Everybody needs to be part of it. Everybody needs to believe that they're part of this. So celebrating good behaviours, celebrating positive attitudes, and actually not necessarily calling out bad behaviours. but actually showing what good looks like. And also the next generation understanding that it makes sense to do good things and to be celebrated for working properly and working safely, and actually realizing that they can have a challenging conversation with an older farmer about a job that you've been asked to do that's unsafe, so that the farmer doesn't feel that they're being attacked, but you approach it as a younger farmer in a respectful way, so that it will actually ultimately get you the goal that you want, which is to be allowed to fix the job before you do it, or actually to walk away if you have to. It's about challenging behaviours, but also it's about changing those attitudes to risk taking and indeed poor mental health as well within the industry, which are also connected.
Now, the Farm Safety Foundation was established in 2014, and you were brought on from the beginning. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges that you faced in bringing this organization to where it is today?
Oh, Mike, challenges. I had created an education program, and this was where a lot of our money was going to be invested, was actually delivering training to those young farmers at land-based colleges and universities right across the UK. So I had set myself a goal of 10 colleges to deliver this training. And at the time, the training was very much hands-on because I had actually come from a science and discovery centre in Belfast, and getting young, sort of 16 years of age, staying interested in science and technology and engineering, maths, all part of the STEM agenda. And the way we did this was making it real and relatable to those people. So I thought I would take this approach to training young farmers, keeping it real, introducing them to real life situations, getting them hands-on. I created the program where we would take them out of the classroom onto the farmyard, which is where they wanted to be, let's be honest. And we would recreate 4 accident scenes. So they would do this almost like a speed dating. We would get them in small groups of about 6 or 7. So they would go on to this one scene and they would work out what has happened. How would they help that victim if they walked around the corner and that was their father, their brother, their work colleague? How could they initially help them? How could they help themselves in that situation? Then in terms of that, how would they prevent themselves being in that situation themselves? So they get maybe 15 minutes at each scene, boom, on to the next one. So it kept it going, kept it really interesting, relatable for them. They get a chance to talk, bring them back into the classroom, talk about some key messages, and then introduce them to somebody who may have had an accident. So they actually see themselves how it affects real people, because it is real people. You know, at the start, we were getting people saying, oh, can you make them a bit more dramatic? No, why should you? We don't need to make them graphic. We don't need to make them dramatic because they're real. Funnily enough, when I was trying to sell this concept to the colleges, it's like, I have a free resource for you, to your students. We'll come, we'll deliver it, cost you nothing. I'm not really very sure, but it just took 2 really forward-thinking colleges to go, count me in. We delivered it to the 2 colleges. They went back to happen to have a meeting with Landex, which is the Land-Based Colleges in Search of Excellence organisation in the UK. Talked about this. Oh my goodness, we had this thing from the Yellow Wellies guys. The other colleges were suddenly then phoning us to say, can we have it? Can we have it? Now that was 2016. I started rolling that out. So we went from 10 colleges in 2016. 5 years later, we're doing 44 colleges this year. We have got those original guys that then went up to 18, then went up to 30. And basically there are ones that want this each and every year. It's part of their curriculum. It's introducing their students before they step foot in the classroom to understanding this is how farm safety is going to affect each and every decision you make each and every day for the rest of your working life. So for us, it's brilliant. That endorsement by those colleges is phenomenal. We're still offering it free of charge. We have developed it. We have brought in modern technology. We're using virtual reality. And obviously now, given lockdown, we've adapted that to webinar and online training as well. That blended learning approach is working really, really well for us and allowing us to go and then start to develop other avenues of education. We're still getting 94% of students rating it good or excellent. It helps us develop it. It helps us know that we're hitting the mark and those people are remembering the messages because they're delivered in a way that they get and it means something to them rather than preachy. Do this, don't do that. They don't want to hear that.
That's an awesome success story. You do quite a bit of work with the colleges. You do quite a bit of work in your Farm Safety Week. How do you maintain an ongoing conversation with young people?
We know that from the research that young farmers get a lot of their information from social media. A lot of them get misinformation from social media, but they still get a lot of their engagement with people. So our Instagram, our Facebook, and to a lesser extent the Twitter accounts actually help us to sort of deliver those messages in a real and relatable way every day. We use influencers. We have some really wonderful influencers here in the UK who are so positive and powerful. And actually what we do is we train them so that they understand the influence that they can have on social media. And for example, if they're being filmed for something, to ensure they're wearing their helmet, why that is, and actually getting them to be actually quite strong and say no if a media outlet asks to film them for a local station. We're writing their ATV. We have a fantastic influencer, Hannah Jackson. She's a red shepherdess. She's got the most beautiful red hair and she has hundreds of thousands of followers. But when she's on television, they all want her with the red hair flowing in the background on her ATV. But she'll turn around and say, actually, no, because I'm an influencer and people actually watch what I'm doing. I don't want to show poor safety behaviours. You know, so she can do that in a very gentle way, but still get that safety message across. So we share a lot of her messages. She also shares ours because she understands that when we are talking on social media, it's because we've got something to say. Our content can be lighthearted. It can also be serious, but it's how it's delivered and the tone of voice that you use. We have 35,000 followers on social media. And people follow us because they get what we're saying and they understand that they're going to get those messages in a real way. But if we can do a reel or if we can do a short video for them to sort of illustrate what we're trying to say, then that lasts longer in memory. So using video, using visuals, a lot more important than just reams and words and quoting regulations and legislation. It's not where young farmers want to get their info and it's not how they want to get it. And we keep asking them that. So it seems to be working for us.
It's effective in reaching older farmers too. I know I have spoken about this before, that a neighbor of mine who's over 65 said to me, once I've got the auto steer locked in, I don't have anything else to do for the next 5 or 10 minutes until I have to turn the tractor around again.
Absolutely. And this is the thing. I mean, what we're able to do, especially with even things like that, is actually get them to understand the power of that piece of technology they've got, that smartphone, the fact that actually it can save their lives. So by sharing things like What 3 Words app, understanding that if they're a contractor and they're working away from home, but they don't know the grid coordinates of where they are, by putting in their location on What 3 Words means that people will know exactly where they are. And if they were to happen upon a farm accident or to be part of it themselves, that they could direct emergency services to the scene of the accident quicker, which at the end of the day, in a farm incident, can be the difference between life and death. And it's how quick the emergency services will get to you. The beauty of What 3 Words is the fact that it's being recognised by, in terms of the UK, probably about 95% of emergency services anyway. And I know worldwide, it's there by giving them that 3-word location. It means that the emergency services can decide whether or not it's an air ambulance, a land ambulance, or what, that it will get to you quicker, which, as I said, is possibly life-saving.
You mentioned that this is provided free to the colleges. Nothing costs nothing. Where does money come from for this?
NFU Mutual have supported us from day one. They set us up with a 5-year commitment to fund us. And then at the end of those 5 years, I went back to the board, presented what we'd achieved, presented the outcomes, presented the successes. They then agreed to further fund us for another 3 years. And that funding comes to an end at the end of this year. So I will be going back presenting to board in September about how we further developed things. For something like the virtual reality, I had to look above and beyond because I can't keep going back to them asking for more money. Although I do. They can say no, but if you don't ask, you don't get. But we're very lucky in the fact that there are a lot of young farmers clubs out there. There are a lot of organisations that like what we do, and they've actually contributed to us and fundraised for us, which has been really lovely. But for something like the virtual reality, which was going to be quite a big investment for us, I applied to the National Lottery in the UK, and they loved the idea of blending education, especially for the young people in rural areas, and blending technology with that, and the understanding and the experiential aspect of the virtual reality platform meant that they said absolutely yes. So they helped to contribute to that for us. So where there's a will, there's a way. We'll look for money somehow. No stone will go unturned. And there's a member of the royal family. He wrote a cheque to us, didn't want any thanks for it. and said, I like what you're doing for the rural youth in the UK. Unfortunately, we do get people who've lost members of their family as a result of farm accidents who ask for donations in lieu of flowers to come to us and things like that. Those things aren't massive, but they mean a lot, especially to a small charity like us. It really means a lot to have that support from the actual industry.
Do you like what you're hearing from the Back 40? We'd like to hear from you. Send us an email with your comments and thoughts to theback40@trilliummutual.com or follow us on social media @Trillium Mutual. It sounds like it's really starting to gain some momentum and make an impression upon people that want to give to it. And you mentioned you're going to have to go back to NFU Mutual at the end of this year. We've just spent more than a year now with COVID-19 as an issue, and most of us that are trying to do education, we've been relegated back to behind a computer screen somewhere. How has that changed what you do in your delivery of the programs?
We were 5 colleges into our virtual reality training last year when COVID shut everything down. So basically, we just went back to the books and we adapted the training that we had developed to be able to be delivered as a webinar. So we were able to then continue to deliver those training sessions for the colleges. We also wrote resources. We wrote a guide for young farmers, sent it out through all the colleges, through all the young farmers clubs. I mean, that's to 46,000 members in YFCs across the UK. We also did it for rural primary schools. We did one specifically for parents because we knew that there were going to be parents of young children that were going to have children on farms more, obviously due to lockdown restrictions. That issue is a massive issue, and it's such an emotive issue as well because, you know, farming is the only industry in the UK where children continue to lose their lives in the workplace. We need to make sure that we get that message across that farmyards are not playgrounds. Children, if they cannot be supervised properly, should not be in the working space. Yes, they're a fantastic place for children to grow up and to learn things about contributing and farm to fork and environmental issues and animal management, but only if supervised properly because they are busy working farms. Those messages were able to get out to rural primary schools right across the UK as well. We also helped because there was a massive call for a land army to come and harvest because a lot of the people that work temporarily on farm, they usually come from sort of mainland Europe as well, but that wasn't going to happen because of that movement. Those people wouldn't have the opportunity for farm safety training either, so we created a resource for that as well to send out to those large harvesting businesses that can basically hand it off and say, this is stuff you need to learn about keeping yourself safe while you're on the premises. We worked with NFU Mutual as part of their customer support package in response to the coronavirus about stress levels within the industry and managing and looking after your mental health and building resilience. So we were able to work because of a lot of the work that we'd done in the realm of mental well-being as well. So that's something we were able to adapt for their agency network and also for the customers too.
The farm is a wonderful place to grow up on. And from a very early age, I was out and around with livestock. I can remember being in a dairy barn and my parents got rid of the cattle when I was less than 5 years old. And I spent a lot of time in a hog barn and, of course, around machinery. And as you say, if you're not supervised properly, it's a very dangerous place to be. There's other dangers to that as well, in that you see how safety is treated on a farm. And if it's not treated seriously, then that can be part of your attitude growing up as well. So the sooner you can get to these people, to children, and get those attitudes ingrained in them, the better, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think younger farmers, they can actually learn a lot from it. And I think the Young Farmers Club network here in the UK is fantastic and they learn a lot from each other. And the wonderful thing is actually from an education point of view, we have adapted training for them to receive. So no matter if you're as young as 12 or you're as old as, say, 26 by the time you leave the Young Farmers Club network, there's an opportunity to get the farm safe training as well. So it's important to have those attitudes to understand the importance and the contribution that farmers make to putting food on our plates, making sure our shelves are stacked every day, but also, you know, there is no industry without them. So it's really, really important that they understand that when they're on a farm, what their obligations are as young people, as well as, you know, them as future farmers, to basically really realise and to respect the role that they can play in the industry.
Yes, in this country, I can remember as a 4-H member going through a farm safety club, and Junior Farmers has done a tremendous amount of work with farm safety. And all of that is great that we have the education there. But I think what separates your foundation from other foundations or other organizations that are providing the education is the research component that you do around that. This is not just about education, communication, and engagement, but there's a research component to what the foundation does as well, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. All action plan, all strategy needs to be based around evaluation. It needs to be based on measurement and feedback. Everything we've done, we started doing a tracker in 2014 before actually we started doing things, because we wanted to find out what farmers' attitudes were, young farmers' attitudes were at that time to risk taking, what were their influences, why they were being influenced to rush and to take risks, because those are the things that we were able to then tackle and say, right, if you're being influenced by peers, we need to talk more about peer pressure. If you're being influenced by an older farmer or a boss or somebody who's paying your wages, how do we tackle that? Is it time? Is it tiredness? All of those kind of things. Do they wear helmets on ATVs? If not, why not? So these all actually contribute to our messages, and they have done year on year. Actually, what we've seen is when we started, 74% said that they would think twice about taking a risk. That's jumped now to 90% would think twice about taking a risk. That's a huge jump.
That's huge. That's massive.
That is massive, and then thinking about the consequences, that has also jumped maybe 15 points in the last 6 years. So these are things that we're asking them about. We're also asking them about things like mental health, whether mental health and farm safety are connected. What do they consider the biggest hidden danger in farming? We asked them that question. And 2 years ago, when we started asking that question, it was 82% of young farmers believed that mental ill health was the biggest hidden problem in farming. And actually that figure, when we did the same research last August, had jumped to 88%. So almost 4 in 5 young farmers believe that that is the biggest hidden problem, not bureaucracy, not regulation, not having a market for their goods, but actually the issue of mental health. And 85% of them also believe that farm safety and mental health are linked. That's really important as well, because it's something that we had become aware of anecdotally, and we knew it from working with our ambassadors. And this is a really massive thing for us, because we have about 50 ambassadors who are people right throughout the UK who have various levels of experiences of either having an accident, being touched by an accident, being aware of having had lost somebody to a mental health condition or suffering this themselves and struggling. So there's a lot of different types of ambassadors we have that actually give us that real story. And it's about real people and real stories. And that's what an audience relates to. I could talk, as you know, to the cows come home about anything. But at the end of the day, if you put my trustee, Jim Chapman, 23 years of age, lost his arm in a PTO accident. I put him in front of a group of students, talk about his own experiences. You could hear a pin drop. They will look at this person, imagine how would it affect them, hear his stories about how it affected his family, his relationship, his friendship, his mental health. That is the thing that really resonates with people. And it's not all the, oh, poor me, I'm very lucky. There are some wonderful stories of positivity and strength. I mean, Jim's using his experience to help us, to help others. It's a very positive drive, and that's what we're all about. We're all about the positivity.
Yes, and you talk about the power takeoffs, and I watched my own father get wound up in a power takeoff, and very, very fortunate that he was not seriously injured. I was there to help him get untangled, and we walked back to the house to get a new set of pants and a new set of coveralls. And the understanding that you get from seeing something that living through that experience until my father passed away, and for myself, neither one of us would step across a power takeoff. And it didn't matter whether the tractor was out of gear or shut off. It was just something that we would not do. It makes a tremendous difference. That personal experience makes a tremendous difference to what your attitude can be.
Yeah, it does. And it doesn't need to be graphic either, I know in the UK, the health and safety executive used to have a lot of really scary films that would, fear people. For that generation, it's not about having something that's scary and graphic. It's about having something that's real and relatable. And that's the thing. And it's having a real person stand in front of them with one arm, telling you that he can't tie his own tie anymore, or tie his own shoelaces. That makes you think. And I think that's the important thing, but also that's a story. The thing is that if they're basically standing in front of somebody that's asked them to do a job, it's not safe because the PTO isn't guarded or the chain's hanging off. You can tell a story and say, do you know what? I met a guy who lost his arm in a PTO accident. That's that storytelling thing, which then maybe sows the seed, and the farmer gives them that opportunity to say, do you know what? Let's go and get a new one. Sure, a new one's only going to cost £75. It's that kind of thing. I don't want to be like this guy. I saw him. This is awful. And it's that human aspect where you disappear suddenly inside your brain going, wow, these are the consequences for me. These are the consequences for my business if this guy does this job and it's unsafe. That's the approach that we take. It's not don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. It's giving them the skills to be able to live well and to farm well. And that's what we're trying to do.
And we can never have enough of that awareness. Talked about my father getting wound up in a power takeoff. It was surprising because he took a shortcut that he knew he shouldn't do. And he had spoken so many times and it was so front of mind with him. And yet he did it anyway. It just shows that if someone like him could and would do that, this is something that we all need to keep at the front of our mind at all times. It's not enough just to say, oh, well, I've got that. It's something that needs to be brought forward and kept there.
This is the thing that we're trying to sort of embed in the next generation, that they're going to do this each and every day for the rest of their working lives. And let's be honest, what farmer retires at 65 years of age? None in the UK. Average age of a farmer in the UK is 59. At the end of the day, if they're going to do this as their job, they want to do it each and every day. They want to come home with 5 fingers, 5 toes, 2 arms, 2 legs. That's not a lofty ambition, really, let's be honest.
That should be a basic ambition.
Exactly. It should be a given, and it shouldn't be something that they sort of mess around with. They should just really make sure that they're thinking of this every day and doing those little dynamic risk assessments in their head, taking a quick look around the farmyard to see what has changed since yesterday, not presuming that everything's going to be the same. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to debunk the myths around things like risk assessments. Basically, you get up in the morning, you make yourself a cup of tea, you don't lift it straight up to your mouth to take a drink because it's going to be too hot and it's going to burn your mouth. That's a risk assessment. This is the kind of thing, if your kid's got Lego on the ground, you're not going to walk through it because that's worse than walking through fire. That's a risk assessment. And you do them all the time. So why should it be any different for farming? But as long as you can prove in your head that you've done that dynamic risk assessment, that should be you okay. And you're thinking about what could go wrong, thinking about what you could do to make it safe, and then deciding to do it.
Now, you talked about mental health is the largest unseen problem, according to farmers. You have a program called Mind Your Head. Can you talk a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, Mind Your Head is one of our campaigns that sort of falls into our communication side of things. So about 4 years ago, following our research, we knew that we needed to start talking about mental health because if you remember, 4 years ago was in and around the time of Brexit. There was a lot more uncertainty in the UK surrounding farmers about what the market for their goods is going to be like. We had the beast from the east, which was a huge weather issue that we had in March about 4 years ago. We had a massive late surge of snow and ice, and a lot of people who were at lambing stage and at calving stage lost a lot of their stock as a result of this terrible beast from the east, they called it, this weather condition. It affected a lot of people's bottom line, obviously. It affected a lot of people's mental health as a result of it because many farmers had taken out a lot of debt in order to buy stock. So it was something that we needed to start supporting. The first year we did it, we decided we would actually just raise awareness of the fact that mental ill health in the industry was something that we need to talk about. It was affecting people. Strangely enough, as you can imagine, 4 years ago when we wanted to talk about it, there weren't too many farmers that wanted to talk about it to us. So when we were going to press and PR and trying to get media interested in the story, can we have a case study? No, because nobody wants to talk about it. And that's why we're doing the campaign in the first instance. Essentially, that was sort of 4 years ago, and then we sort of built it up. But the second year was about how to start a conversation with somebody about their mental health. The next one was that direct link between farm safety and mental health. And the last one we did, which was last month, was actually letting people know that, the last 12 months have been a real challenge for everybody. Farmers are no different, but there's a unique set of stressors that they're facing that other people don't have. This is an industry that had 20 farm workers die in so-called farm incidents. 133 in the same year took their own lives.
And we don't want to talk about it.
Nobody wants to talk about it. But the thing is, it needs to be talked about, but also how it's talked about is really, really important as well. But the important thing is actually educating yourself about what poor mental health is. What does it look like? What does it sound like? How it's affecting the industry? How to start a conversation, even if it isn't face-to-face? And actually, where are those sources of support for farmers? In the UK, we're very, very lucky to have farm and rural support groups that can work from a local level to a county level, to a national level. And also, as well as that, we've got the medical support of the NHS. We've got a lot of private contractors as well that work specifically. And we have farming help charities that can help, whether or not it's an issue on succession planning, finance, mental health, and there are online platforms available to UK farmers as well to reach out to each other and to actually guide them to those sources of support that exist.
You've been very successful with the Farm Safety Foundation. What would you say is your greatest success that you've had over the years since you started this?
Well, do you know what? The fact that we're still needed is challenge enough for me. I actually want there to come the day where farming doesn't have the poorest safety record of any occupation, where people are starting to look after themselves properly for the right reasons, where a foundation that talks about keeping people safe going and coming home from work isn't needed anymore. That to me would be a success. But for me, in the last Mind Your Head campaign, I was talking at a virtual conference and I got an email from one of the attendees who, through the website, who basically said that she had been listening to the talk that I had given. And it was a Dairy Tech online conference. And she had said that she was listening to it and her father, who's not even in farming, was in the same room as her when she was listening to this. And later on that evening, he said at the dinner table that hearing the Irish woman talking about signs and symptoms of somebody struggling with mental health, he realised that that was him and that actually he needed help himself. Could his family help him to get some support? And to me, a story like that makes me think, oh my goodness, that makes what we're doing worthwhile. That it's reaching out to one person who recognised what I was saying in himself and actually asked for help. That's the biggest success for me. A bigger success would be zero avoidable death. That's a lofty goal for the future. And until such things happen, I'll take every little gain. Every student that comes back and says, I'll think twice, or I've thought about the consequences, or I'll wear my helmet. I'll take those little successes, those little wins. That's fine. But I don't think anybody working in this, like yourself, Mike, would sit back on their laurels until such times as we're not needed. We'll keep going.
Yeah, I think that you talked about the increased awareness that you've seen with your programs and how that is it's a great indicator there. But as you say, the true success is on an individual basis, someone that asks for help for mental health, someone that thinks twice before they do something that they already know they shouldn't do it. But they say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something. I'm going to fix that guard. I'm going to fix that piece of equipment. And I'm not going to put myself in danger. And as you say, it would be nice to be able to work yourself out of a job. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening in the near future, but we certainly have and will see improvements there. What do you see as the future for the foundation itself? Is there anywhere that you think that it's going to go that it hasn't been yet?
We were set up, to look after farmers under the age of 40. And that's what our focus has been, apart from with Mind Your Head and apart from Farm Safety Week, where we bring everybody in the industry into it. But it's the older farmers that are stuck in their ways, as you said, have been doing it and relying on luck. We haven't gone into that because there is Farm Safety Partnership in the UK that was set up to look after them, but they're the ones that are still having the life-ending accidents. In fact, actually, last year, over half of the farmers that died in the fatal injuries, according to the Health and Safety Executive report, over half of them were over the age of 60. There were 85-year-olds being killed by coming into contact with livestock. What 85-year-olds should be anywhere near livestock? Seriously, that's a challenge I would accept. At the end of the day, if I can get through to the next generation, remember, this is a generation of kids who know it all. They're invincible. It's never going to happen to them. they get it. So let me at the older ones. And I think a lot of the approaches have been impersonal. And I think when you talk about the Farm Safety Foundation, there are 2 of us, there's soon to be 3. We're a small charity, but we've got big ambitions. We've got big goals, and we've got big energy. And we do take it personally. I mean, this for me is personal. It's something that I think people need to do. But if it's coming from an organisation that's a nameless, faceless, large organisation, farmers don't get that. Whereas when we were travelling, if I was getting into the car and driving for 4 or 5 hours to get to a college in Cornwall to deliver training to 60 young farmers at college there, I'm going to make sure they listen to me, because I didn't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning for nothing. And this is the important thing, that they've got to understand that we're doing this because we care about them, and actually people do care about them. People do respect them, and people do value the contribution they make to the economy and to everything, to our plates every day. So we're looking after them, and then we just say to them, it's your health, it's your safety, it's your choice. I can't make you do it. It has to be your decision, but do it for the right reasons. To come home and be able to go out with your friends and to be able to cut your own steak.
Stephanie, it's been a great conversation about a very, very serious topic in the industry. Thank you very much for your time. It's wonderful to talk to someone in another country that is so involved in this and such passion for what it is that you're trying to achieve in the industry. We've been talking with Stephanie Berkeley from the Farm Safety Foundation in the United Kingdom.
Thanks, Mike.
Join us next time when our guest will be Kevin Varley from the Ontario Pork Congress, and we'll be talking about trade shows and the new reality with COVID-19. You've been listening to The Back 40, brought to you by Trillium Mutual Insurance. Be sure to subscribe to The Back 40 wherever you find your favorite podcasts so that you don't miss an episode. The Back 40, bringing the ag community together, one podcast at a time. I'm Mike Brine. Until next time, take care and stay safe.